at the limbus by the scleral venous sinus. So it forms as a filtrate from capillaries located within the ciliary processes. Okay? It flows from the posterior chamber into the anterior chamber, and it's drained via the scleral venous sinus. It's also called the canal of Schlemm, which kind of makes you smile when you say canal of Schlemm. Yes?
Dogs see in blue and yellow, actually, and they do have cones. They just have more rod. They just have like way fewer than humans.
Okay. Thank you, Jordan.
You're welcome.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. I'm just going to share that.
Now, these fluids within the eye, both the aqueous humor and the vitreous humor, create intraocular pressure. Generally, the amount of aqueous humor that's produced is equal to the amount that's being drained or reabsorbed every day. And it allows for a constant intraocular pressure of about 16 millimeters of mercury. Remember that neither the lens nor the cornea are vascular. They don't contain blood vessels. So they get their oxygen nutrients from the aqueous humor. What's the name of the condition where the intraocular pressure is much higher than normal? There's a condition associated with high intraocular pressures. What is that condition called?
The only eye condition I know is glaucoma.
That's it!
Yes!
Glaucoma. So glaucoma is associated with elevated intraocular pressures. Okay. All right, we said the vitreous humor is formed during embryonic life, and it lasts a lifetime. Now, both the aqueous humor and the vitreous humor bend light. Okay, so they play a role in refraction and focusing of light upon the retina. The vitreous humor also supports the posterior surface of the lens, okay, and it holds the neural retina firmly against the choroid. Okay. It also contributes to intraocular pressure. All right, when we think of light traveling through the eye, okay, as soon as it begins to travel through the cornea, it begins to bend. Refraction starts. So refraction first begins within the cornea, and as light continues into the eye, it's bent further by the aqueous humor, then by the lens, and finally by the vitreous humor. So you should be able to trace the pathway of incoming light rays. Again, cornea, aqueous humor, lens, vitreous humor, then it strikes the retina, specifically the photoreceptors. Okay? The refractory power of the humors and the cornea is constant. Okay, so fine-tuning, focusing is performed by the lens, because the lens is subject to further thickening or thinning. And so you can change the refractile power of the eye by simply changing the thickness of the lens. Here we see that when we're looking at something in the distance, these incoming light rays are parallel, and so we don't need to thicken the lens too much to focus upon the retina. On the other hand, when we're looking at something close up, the incoming light rays are more divergent. They're more splayed. And so the lens has to thicken so that it can bend those light rays more to focus them upon the retina. People who are emmetropic have a normal eye, and it really means, what it really means is the diameter, the length of the eye is normal. So that when the lens focuses incoming light rays, the focal plane is in line with the retina. People who are myopic or nearsighted, they have an elongated eye, so that the focal plane actually sits in front of the retina instead of along the same plane as the retina. So when people in the back of the class want to focus on the whiteboard, what they have to do is squinch. When they squinch their eyes, it forces the posterior pole of the eye forward, so it comes more in line with the focal plane. People who have hyperoptic eyes, they're foresighted, their eye is foreshortened. In other words, the focal plane sits behind the retina. Now, for these two conditions, of course, you can add lenses. The person can wear glasses and that can either increase the refractile ability of the eye by beginning to bend the light before it reaches the eye, or it can decrease. So it can change ultimately the focal plane. It can bring it forward or backwards. Okay, for close vision, we talked about this. The eye has to accommodate. You have to contract the ciliary muscles to thicken the lens, okay, so that you can shorten the focal length. You can bring it in line with the retina. When you look at things up close, you need to constrict the pupils. Okay, so it prevents the more divergent rays from entering into the eyes. Again, this is also a function of cranial nerve 3. Finally, you also converge. You focus on the object so that the incoming light rays then are focused on that macula lutea. Again, a function of cranial nerve 3, because the oculomotor nerve innervates the medial rectus. The conjunctiva. I didn't draw the conjunctiva here, but let's draw it. To draw the conjunctiva, you have to draw in the lids. So let's draw in the lids. Here's the upper eyelid. Here's some hair. These are eyelashes. Here's the lower eyelid. Now, the conjunctiva is a mucous membrane. The mucous membrane is an epithelial membrane that lines a space that opens to the outside. So this mucous membrane runs along the undersurface of the upper lid and folds back onto the upper surface of the eye. It runs over the sclera. But it doesn't extend beyond the limbus. It doesn't cover the cornea. Same thing back here. It covers the undersurface of the lower lid, folds back, and covers part of the eye. Again, the sclera, but not the cornea. The part that lines the lids is called the palpebral conjunctiva. The part that lines the eye itself, bulbar or ocular conjunctiva. The conjunctiva have blood vessels, so that if you develop conjunctivitis, what happens? The conjunctiva becomes inflamed. It becomes red.
So red eye or pink eye?
Yeah, it's got pink eye. It's a form of conjunctivitis. When you close the lids, it forms a little sac, the conjunctival sac. Now, today, we're going to dissect sheep eyes. So what I'm going to do, we're going to take like a 5-minute break while I pull out a bucket of sheep eyes.